Hello, everyone, and welcome to WriterSpeak, dedicated to the written word and those who produce it. I am your host, Jeane Slone, author of 3 historical novels, She Flew Bombers, She Built Ships, and She Was an American Spy During World War II. I'm also a local distributor of local authors' books. Today in the studio, I'm very happy to introduce authors Dr. Ruth Schwartz and Dr. Michelle Murrain. Welcome to WriterSpeak, Ruth and Michelle.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. We're so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
They are the authors of the newly released book, Conscious Lesbian Dating and Love. I love the cover, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I really like the 2 different hands making a heart. That was a very clever idea.
Well, we hoped that it would convey the sentiment of the book, because it really is about how women can come together and find lasting love.
Yeah, it's a coming together of 2 hands.
Yeah.
The subtitle, I should read, A Roadmap to Finding the Right Partner and Creating the Relationship of Your Dreams. Then it has these cute little hearts. Let me tell you all about these talented authors. Ruth L. Schwartz has a PhD in transpersonal psychology and has extensive training in energy medicine, shamanism, and hypnotherapy. She has been in private practice since 2003 and has taught workshops all over the country, helping hundreds of individuals and couples access inner guidance, heal trauma, and create more joyful lives. Ruth is an author of 8 books. She has taught at 6 colleges and universities and is currently a low residency faculty member at Ashland University. Michelle Murrain received her PhD in neuroscience from Case Western Reserve University and taught at Hampshire College for 10 years. She has a certificate in theological studies and has a Buddhist meditation practice for over 25 years. In addition, she studied relationship coaching with world-renowned experts. Michelle is passionate about helping women develop self-awareness, self-compassion, and communication skills that lead to happy relationships. Ruth and Michelle are legally married partners who live in Sonoma County. What is the difference between lesbian dating relationships comparing it to heterosexual relationships? That was a question that kept popping up in my head because I did find so many practical parts for heterosexual couples, really.
Yeah. Well, there are many things that are true regardless of the gender of people involved. But there are a few things that we've found tend to be different for lesbians or for women in relationships with each other. One is that studies actually show that women expect more from relationships in general than men do. So in a heterosexual relationship, it's usually the woman that will initiate marriage counseling, couples counseling. It's usually the woman who will initiate a breakup. And so when you have 2 women together, there's 2 women expecting more. And so the stakes are kind of higher, and that can play out causing a lot of difficulty, or it can play out creating an incredibly wonderful relationship if both women involved have the right level of skill. And
And the other piece is that oftentimes women will bond more quickly and more strongly to each other. So I think in general, men tend to keep more distance. I mean, this is probably more socialization than anything else, but men tend to keep more distance, but two women will just bond really closely together very quickly. You know, there's a joke in the lesbian community about, you know, what do women bring on the second date, and it's a U-Haul, right? And that's the joke, right? So there tends to be a much more quick and deep bonding between women.
And it actually does play out. We've talked to
Yes.
women that have met, gotten engaged, and moved in together within a couple of weeks. And the problem with that is that the bonding can go very deep before women actually really know who each other is and whether
Exactly.
the other person is actually a truly compatible partner.
I was going to say that can not necessarily be good.
Well, absolutely.
It's almost never good.
It's not good. It's not good. Because what happens is that, you know, for all couples, when we first start getting attracted to each other, we go into a state called limerence. And that's a state where the brain is actually pumping out these endogenous opiates, like the body's own version of heroin and cocaine. And that's why we feel high on love. You know, that state where all you can think about is the other person. And, you know, so two women together seem to go into that state of limerence more quickly and more deeply than couples of other genders. And it can actually cause a lot of problems because, you know, you go straight into limerence, you find out later that you're not well suited for each other. It's heartbreaking to break up.
Right.
And so we work with a lot of women that have just felt shattered by a number of breakups in a row, and they end up just being afraid of love, like feeling like they can't do this thing, they can't ever have another relationship.
I imagine this was one of the main reasons why you wrote the book.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
would you say, are there other reasons then?
Well, there really isn't a lot written for lesbians about how to have conscious, healthy relationships.
That's exactly what
And
I thought
so
when I first saw that book.
Yeah, and so we felt it was really important to get the tools that we learned and the methods and the practices out there further, sort of more broadly in the world.
And we've based a lot of what's in the book, not only on our professional training. I mean, Michelle brings in the neuroscience a lot. I bring in the psychology. We bring in the work that we've done with Gay and Kathleen Hendricks. But we also tell a lot of our personal stories because even though we were, you know, smart and accomplished and, you know, we were both professors, our personal lives were a mess, you know, during the period of time that we're writing about in the book, you know. So there are a lot of women out there who have so much to offer, but just keep connecting with the wrong women and, you know, so they haven't found the right partner and they're also not showing up as the right partner. They don't have all the communication skills that they need. You know, for many years, I thought that the problems were all with my partners, and it took me a long time to realize, hey, I was the common denominator. You know, there was a lot that I didn't know how to do well to be able to sustain the level of intimacy that I really wanted. So that's a lot of what we talk about in the book.
And you talk about conscious approach. So tell the audience what you mean by this very important term that you use over and over.
We do.
Well, yeah. I mean, conscious is really about awareness. It's about being aware of what you're feeling, being able to not act from fear or from what we call triggers. It's actually a common term in psychology. It's a state that you get into, which basically is fight or flight, where you're not actually acting rationally. And so it's about being able to know what's going on, to slow things down, so that you actually can act in a way that's wise. And so just bringing consciousness, bringing awareness, bringing a kind of a step-by-step process to this thing about love and dating. And that helps to actually make it work better. You know, that's really... It's a, yeah.
And bringing the conscious approach to dating is really, first of all, recognizing if you're ready to get into a new relationship. I know that I
Right.
sometimes got into relationships right after I had broken up. I wasn't ready, and that doomed the new relationship and caused more heartbreak. So part of being conscious is knowing when you're ready. Part of it is really being clear on what you want in a relationship, so that then when you meet somebody, you can find out, hey, does she actually want the same things? And then you can also just consciously observe, well, how are we together? Who is she really? You know, and what skills do I have to create the relationship that I want? What skills does she have? If there are skills that I need or she needs that we don't have, what are we going to do about that? Because most of us, you know, people of all genders and orientations are mostly getting into relationships without thinking about these things. You know, we meet somebody that we're attracted to and we just kind of hope it's all going to work out from there. And, you know, it often doesn't. So, so that's why we're so passionate about the conscious approach.
I know there's different philosophies about relationships in general, that if you break up with somebody, that you should wait a year before you get involved with another person. What is your personal opinion on that subject?
I think it's hard to have a hard and fast rule. I mean, I think that's maybe a good guidance, because I think that it does take time after a breakup to process what happened, to figure out what your part in that thing was, that whether it was a conflict that made you split up, or a difference in relationship vision, or whatever it might have been. But I think in some cases it might take shorter, in some cases it might be longer. It's really hard to have a hard and fast rule.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly many women that might have been broken up for several years or even 10 years who haven't really made peace with what happened in their last relationship,
Right.
and you know, are still grieving, or still angry, still blaming themselves. And so in that case, no matter how much time has passed, you're not ready.
I think the key is making peace with the relationship.
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we teach in the 12-week class, the 12-week roadmap to Conscious Lesbian Dating and Lasting Love, which the book is based on. We spend a week on that process, a week out of the 12, because and women are often scared to do that part because it can bring up a lot of pain. But it's so essential, because once you really understand the part that you played, you can feel empowered to make different choices the next time, you know, bring different skills the next time. So when women haven't done that piece, they tend to get into new relationships, but, you know, with a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation, which, you know, then actually causes problems in itself.
I really like that term that you use, making peace with oneself before moving on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's excellent that you impart that.
And another thing that we teach a lot about is self-compassion. It's one of Michelle's specialties.
It is. I mean, sometimes when you've looked back at a relationship and you see your part in it, a lot of women are self-judgmental. Like, I did that, and that was a horrible thing I did, and, you know, I couldn't believe I spoke this way, or I can't believe I stayed this long, or I shut down in this way, and they get really judgmental about themselves, and they go, like, why can I love? I mean, can't I do this right, you know? And so the process of coming to compassion and love for ourselves and saying, this is who we are, we're okay, you know, we're learning, we're growing. We can understand our mistakes and look at our mistakes, but still love ourselves and still be okay and have compassion for ourselves, even in that. And that process really helps to, it's part of the making peace, for sure. And it also helps a lot of women to be able to choose much better the next time, because they're clear about, they're able to stand in their own strength, they're able to stand in their own what's right for them, and they can make better choices.
And their deservingness, their sense of worthiness.
Yes.
Because it's really hard to get into a great relationship if you don't actually feel worthy of that kind of love.
Exactly.
I know another tool that you mentioned that is very helpful is journaling. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, in the book, we talk about a lot of the exercises that we lead women through. And in the 12-week class, it's a very experiential class. It's not just us talking, because that wouldn't work. So we have audio lessons and we have written exercises. Some of them are journaling, some of them are responding to specific questions or actually working with specific practices and then implementing them in their other relationships, because a lot of the skills that we teach can make a huge difference in all of somebody's relationships, family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, So journaling is only one of the tools, but absolutely we encourage introspection, a willingness to look within and learn more about, who am I, what do I want, what do I need, what do I need to be able to do in order to have more of what I want, where am I blocking myself? We have lots and lots of exercises to kind of get at all of that.
So tell us more about the 12 weeks. Maybe you could list the 12 weeks so that we could understand if someone wants to take the course to better their life, what the 12 weeks would be like.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, so we begin with just setting some context about what healthy relationships are and what kind of skills that one needs to really have a healthy relationship. And also about paradigms and beliefs that women bring to relationships, which are often erroneous, and help them see what those paradigms are that they're carrying internally, and help them sort of release those paradigms. And then the next step is about self-compassion, is helping women cultivate self-compassion and self-love. Really sort of stretching those muscles and getting them to look at the ways in which they have been judgmental and to ease that and begin to cultivate self-compassion in replacement for self-judgment.
And then after that, we go into the making peace with the past, that process. And then the next week focuses on really befriending our feelings, because what happens so much in relationships, again, with people of all genders, is feelings come up that we don't know what to do with. And so we might shut down, we might yell, we might, do all kinds of problematic things. So the process of befriending our feelings is really key in being able to have a healthy relationship. And then after that, we teach a lot of communication skills. We talk about clean speech and clean listening, so that people are eliminating blame and criticism from their relationship dialogues, because actually studies show that criticism is the #1 predictor of breakups or divorce.
Can you give an example? That is such an interesting title, clean speech.
Sure. You have an example come to mind?
Well, I think oftentimes we, if something, maybe there's a conflict, something goes wrong, and we want to express that to our partner, it's important that we remove blame. So we could say something like, an example would be if... how
about the chard?
Oh, the chard.
I had asked Michelle to get some chard from the farmer's market yesterday.
Yes.
And I was kind of hoping she'd get a couple bunches of chard, and she only got one.
I only got one bunch of chard.
And I said something like,
You were expecting my meeting.
well, I was expecting, a couple bunches of chard. And so I said, you didn't get enough chard. Which actually, I could have probably said that a little bit more cleanly. But it would have been much more problematic if I had said, you never get enough. You
Yeah.
know,
To
you always forget.
Never know.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes,
What were
those
you
words.
thinking?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Don't you
yeah.
care about me? And
Yes.
it turned out that actually she bought the last bunch of chard that the farmer had. So that's why she only got one.
That's the cleaning it up. That's what you mean by cleaning it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, because criticism implies something wrong with the other person, and that's damaging to trust and to intimacy. And so you don't want to do that. You want to eliminate that from the language.
That's excellent.
And then clean listening is the other side of it. So when I said something about, oh, you didn't get enough chard.
Right. I could have said, well, but it was the last one, and what do you mean? I mean, of
You
course,
could have said, well, last week you didn't get enough such and such.
Yeah,
Right. That's the one up.
right. Yes.
Right. Yeah, so we spend a week on these kinds of really important communication skills, because even though the course is for single women, we feel like there's no point in helping them learn to date better if they're just going to not have the relationship skills they need once they find somebody.
Exactly.
So that's why we spend actually the first half of the 12 weeks on relationship skills and then the second half on dating skills.
And
That's
then-
what I
yeah.
really liked about your book. A lot of books, it's for couples or for married couples. But this is the fresh start before the relationship begins.
Right.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah, we actually think it's such a powerful time when you're single to do this kind of exploration and skill building, because once you get into a relationship, you can still do it, of course. It's always valuable to do, but it's more complicated when it's trying to tease apart, like, you know, what's the piece you're bringing, what's the piece I'm bringing, whereas when you're single, it's very easy because it's all you. So it's a really ideal time to learn all of these kinds of skills and processes.
But couples, of course, could get a lot out of the 12-week classes.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of skills. Well, in the book, certainly there's lots of skills that couples can use to communicate better, to heal conflict, and to sort of be aware of their feelings and be able to communicate about their feelings to their partner, for sure.
Yeah, the 12-week class actually is specifically for single women, but the book will speak to everybody.
I think that even couples would get a lot out of the class itself. Don't you
Certainly out of the first half, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And then, so the second half of the of the course really is very much about dating, and so we first sort of help women deal with fear, because fear is a very big part of the early dating process and getting, you know, sort of that entering into this new realm. There's some sort of great body-based techniques that we learn from the Hendricks that we teach women, and then we dive into what is conscious dating. How do you date consciously? What do you how do you prepare for it? What kinds of strategies do you use?
What is your relationship vision?
Right.
We spend a week on that. A lot of times women say to us, you know, relationship vision, I haven't really thought about that. You know, like I think many of us think, oh, well, I just want to find somebody who really loves me and I really love her. But there are so many different ways to do a relationship, you know, whether you're living together or not living together, and where you're living, and you know, what your vision is about how you spend time together, and how autonomous you are versus how much you merge your lives, and you know, many other kinds of issues that we encourage women to really be clear about what they're looking for. Because often when we're not clear, we'll get together with somebody else, she might not be clear either, and then we end up kind of creating a relationship that isn't actually what either person wanted, but we're just kind of defaulting to some Hollywood image or something, you know? Or
Yeah, that's what it is many times.
Yeah. So there's a lot about that, and then there's the sort of nitty-gritty mechanics of dating. You know, what do you do and not do on a first date, on a second date? You know, how do you use online dating wisely or offline dating. We actually have a matchmaking program, which we started recently, so that's another dating option.
And do you have a title for your matchmaking?
Well, it's Conscious Girlfriend Matchmaking.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
because all of our matching is between women who want conscious relationships, who have that commitment to continuing to grow and learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the chemistry.
Oh, right. We talk about compatibility and chemistry and the whole thing about limerence, which is that sort of brain state where that's really important to know about as you embark on this journey, so that you really know what things you can and should do in that phase.
And there's a tremendous amount to think about in terms of compatibility. What compatibility really is. So we teach about 3 different levels of compatibility. And the 3rd level, which is the one we find most important, is the level that most people aren't paying attention to at all. So this is just a small sampling of what's in the 12-week class.
Yeah, I can see that. It's very thorough. I'm so impressed with how thorough it is.
Thank you.
And how ideal it is for a single woman to be paying attention to all these. So you really have 12 concepts, 12 weeks.
Yeah. And we call it a roadmap because,
that's a good title.
Right. We feel like if you want to get somewhere, maybe it's a distance away, it really helps to have a map, because otherwise you might end up driving around aimlessly,
Oh, I see.
And many of the women that we work with, are over 40, over 50, over 60, and they don't just want to date aimlessly. They really want to get into a lasting, fulfilling love relationship. Many of the women that we work with are looking for, what they hope will be the final relationship of their lives, whether that lasts, 10, 20, 30 years, however long it may be. It's when you get to that point where, you don't just want to have, relationships that last a few years and then you break up and then you heal and then you do it again and, and then some of the women that we work with have had long relationships that have ended. Sometimes they've been widowed, or a long relationship that ended for other reasons. And again, they don't want to just, they want that again. They want the best of that again. So that's what the roadmap is really for.
Could you tell us where we can buy this wonderful original book?
Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
For sure.
Yes.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we hope to have people order it from their local bookstores as well.
And is it available through your website then?
We just link to Amazon. Yeah. The easiest way for people to buy it is actually on Amazon. So just go and enter Conscious Lesbian Dating, and it'll come right up.
Oh, good. What about in order to take your 12-week course? Would one to go directly to your website then?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Which is consciousgirlfriend.com.
And when you go to the website, definitely sign up for the email list, because then you'll hear about everything we're doing, and we also send out a lot of very informative emails. Basically everything that we do is about helping lesbians and queer women date wisely and love well. So, we're constantly learning more and figuring out new workshops to offer and writing new articles.
And whether women are single or in couples, they'll find value in some of the things that we offer.
So just to be clear though, if one was to go to your website and sign up for the classes, it is all online. The classes are not in a physical location, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
The 12-week roadmap class is online. We have women from all over the world participating in it.
That makes it easy.
It does. It does.
And we can live anywhere then.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we have a video chat component so the women can meet each other as well as work with us. And then we also do offer live workshops in the San Francisco Bay Area and sometimes elsewhere. And Michelle does a tremendous amount of coaching with both single women and couples.
So when there is a physical class that you can go to, that is on your website? then?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes women feel like they don't really want the class experience, they want something more personalized. And so part of what Michelle does as a coach is walk women through that. She can walk
Yes.
women through the whole 12-week process one-on-one. And then she has different processes I'll let you talk about.
Yeah, so for couples, it's a different thing. You know, for some couples who are maybe they're at the brink of breakup or they're having a lot of problems, there's set issues, processes that I can bring them through to help them heal conflict, help them figure out what the patterns are that are happening in their relationship. Some couples just want sort of to be able to build intimacy because they've sort of lost that. And so there's practices that I can take them through that will help them to really rebuild, get to know each other more, rebuild intimacy, rebuild trust if there's been a breach of trust, that sort of thing.
And the cool thing about the coaching model is it's really different from going to couples counseling or therapy because it's very, very skills-based. So every week, Michelle is teaching the members of the couple specific skills for them to put into practice and use, you know, individually with each other, you know, and then, so it gets to be a very time-limited process. It's not like, you know, you come back week after week and maybe you make a little progress or maybe you don't, you know, it's...
Yeah, it's very, very concrete and somewhat intensive, but it's very, very skills-based, very practices that they can use all the time.
You give what I have heard called homework.
Yes, lots of homework.
Yeah.
Lots of homework.
I personally believe that is the best therapy, is when a therapist gives homework.
Well, I think what's important about a lot of this is it's about shifting patterns and shifting behaviors, and that takes practice, that takes repetition. It's not something that you can just switch on a dime, you can decide to do something differently. It really takes time to learn how to do it differently. And so that's why you need the homework, because it really have to repeat it over and over again.
So just to be clear, you have classes for single women, and then
Correct.
you have classes for couples.
Well, it's primarily coaching for the couples.
Coaching,
and
okay.
we do coaching with single women as well. Yeah.
And your fees are listed online as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or there's an opportunity for people to schedule an initial coaching consultation because we have various different packages that Michelle can recommend which one is the right fit for that person's needs.
Thank you, Dr. Ruth and Dr. Michelle, for joining us on WriterSpeak.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We've really enjoyed it.
It was wonderful.
WriterSpeak has been produced at the C Media Labs in Santa Rosa. We would also like to thank our sponsor, the Sonoma County Gazette. Please join us next time for an interview with another talented author.